special guest, Jason Ray, founder and CEO of Zenith Solutions. Jason, thank you for joining us. Can you tell everybody a little bit about Zenith Solutions before we dive in?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Leslie.
Yes.
Zenith exists to lead more people to financial freedom. Wealth equality is really a necessary form of social justice, and we work tirelessly to provide accessible financial education and advice to underserved communities. So think small business owners are a big part of that underservice, especially in minority communities, but we do work with individuals, students, and small businesses primarily. So we're based here in Pennsylvania as a registered investment advisor.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been around for? How long has Zenith been around, Jason?
So Zenith has been around just under a year. Okay. I broke away from a larger investment advisory firm to start Zenith this time last year. So I've been in the industry now for about 6 years. I'm in the Chartered Financial Analyst program and have some experience with the alternative investment space and insurance space kind of in my past lives. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. But Zenith, I think, is the culmination of a lot of my experience and interaction with clients.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So we're here today specifically to talk about prioritization of funds when it comes to small businesses, and something we work with small businesses every day at Accelerate America too. And although it's not always finance and capital has always been an issue, a top of mind concern for them. And of course, more than ever with the pandemic that happened with us all this year, and connecting to funds and in capital and, in survival. And so I think a lot of owners and just people in general that maybe aren't even a small business owner feel really intimidated by financial terms and getting a hold of their finances. Is that something that you've experienced at Zenith, Jason?
It definitely is. I think people in general tend to shy away from financial conversations if they don't have a lot of experience with their money. And I think that personal experience oftentimes bleeds into business ownership and, people, maybe not being organized with their finances, or maybe just don't know the right questions to ask, or can't get a grip or feel confident that they understand all their financial options can all lead to that, I think, intimidation. So, I think it's definitely been a trying time for a number of reasons. And I think it can make people feel maybe more insecure, more intimidated by, addressing some of their financial situations today. And I think on the flip side, what's interesting is there's been, more federal funds and I think funding just generally available to your everyday small business. So I think that dichotomy has been really interesting, and it's an interesting environment. But I definitely agree.
Right. I mean, I can't imagine to be in that environment day in and day out, and the certain situations and questions and challenges and whatnot. So I'm excited. This prioritization of funds is a topic that Jason said that we need to talk about. And I was like, I think I know what that means. It's probably like a lot of owners. And so we're going to be breaking that down today. So prioritization of funds. What does that mean in simple terms, Jason?
Yeah, I think simply, that means just giving each dollar a job in your business, right? And thinking about the most important jobs should get the first dollars. And when you're able to assign jobs to your money in that fashion, it also allows you to think about how to prioritize what sources you get funds for those jobs from, right? So whether that be internally generated funds, or going out and getting federal stimulus funds, or going out and getting a loan, or in the last case, maybe selling some of your ownership stake to raise funds, are all kind of traditional options.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a budget, right? Like a colloquial term, or like I make a house budget, or like for bills for myself and like paycheck. And so like prioritization of funds is essentially like a small business budget, but a bit more technical, because you're not only like lining everything up with those expenses, you're also need to figure out like where that money is coming from and how that's going to be like tackled, I guess, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that calls out, the opportunity cost concept, which I'll cover in a second. But I think to your point about a budget, that's absolutely spot on. I think that it's a lot simpler than a budget for me or for you probably. And it can boil down really to three things for people.
Okay.
One is kind of that bare bones maintenance money. So, for example, if you run a restaurant, spending money to comply with new food regulations in this new economy that we're in is critical to you even being able to open. Right. So that's kind of the first priority in place where you'd want to put money. Right. Second place is getting your balance sheet to a safe state. Right. And I think this is different for depending on what industry you're in and how capital intensive your business is, but can help you get a better handle on future adversity or stress caused by our current economic situation, right? Times could, continue to worsen. Federal funds could become less available in the future while we're dealing in a recession and a period of social unrest, honestly. So, I think having 12 months of operating expenses in cash or liquid securities is a great thing to think about. But again, it depends on how capital intensive your industry is. And then thirdly is really improvement maintenance capital, right? So going back to the restaurant example, maybe investing in more protective equipment for staff or hand sanitizers for each table may not be required, but it may be more appealing for your customer and give you a competitive advantage.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think once you have these three things mapped out, it can kind of inform you on where you get these funds from, right, to address each one of those three topics. And, I think I'd be interested to know where Accelerate small businesses have been getting their funds from, right? Especially the ones that have been closed, right? Internally generated funds are difficult to generate when your business is not open.
Right. We did speak with a business owner last week and who owns a gym in the local Metro Detroit area. And he's a co-owner with his father. And he said, and this, I keep using this example with people, but he said that they were able to get their PPP loan like this. He's like, and I was like, what? Like, we've been hearing from so many people that it takes so long, or like their bank, something fell through and then they had to like go to another bank, or they missed out. And so I was like, well, my first question was, did you have a current relationship, a pre-existing relationship with the bank before COVID happened? And he said, yes. And he said, but really, I think that I owe it all to my dad. He is super organized and like has us with like a management system. I think he said they used ADP. And he's like, so when it came time to get things together, I just went into the program, found the form, printed it out, and like I had everything ready to go. And I think that so many owners might think like, oh, I'll do it next week, or I'm not an expert at management, and right, like, because I think that's something that's common. Like, you don't open a business to do paperwork or like specific and stuff, right? But that's part of the deal. A few of the businesses that we've spoken with have been able to get the PPP funds, and our funding finder, we created a tool for small business owners to go, and you just put in your zip code and it pulls up the national loans and grants available as well as local ones. And every day, and I get Google alerts because we check every day for new ones. There are new grants coming out every day. And definitely. It's just, and I'm sure it will continue, and hopefully it will continue, as you said, because it's just really, we don't even know what's going to happen, like, and what things are going to look like six months from now. And I want to circle back to something you said. You said that your advice would be to like have 12 months of cash, or right, like for capital. So let's say like I'm a small business owner and I'm just like, how am I supposed to do that? Like, how would somebody be able to do that? I mean, maybe, I don't know, help me.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, I think I'll break this out into kind of preparing for a football game versus getting in shape, right? A football game is kind of an event that you prepare for and then it's over, it's finite. Versus getting in shape is really, you can never be in shape, right? You can always be more in shape. It's more infinite. It's more of an infinite game.
Lifestyle.
Right, exactly. And I think the 12 months of operating expenses may not be the exact number that businesses should be striving for, but I think you want to strive to have a comfortable amount of funds in your account for operating expenses in the case where you may not be able to generate revenue. it's always I don't think people can just say, okay, well, I have $1 million in the bank, I'm going to allocate 300,000 to this, right?
Right.
It's something just to work towards. And as you
Mm.
generate revenue, or as you go out and get federal funds, or as you take on debt,
Mm-hmm.
think about having that, those operating expenses saved up and ready to go in case of emergency, right? It's almost like building up an emergency savings account.
Right.
So I don't think it's something that everybody can go and do tomorrow, but I do
Mm-hmm.
think it's, as it relates to the prioritization, it's something that should be on your list to prioritize too. And even if it's as simple as, think about your personal budget, right? Putting
Right.
$60 a week or a month towards an emergency savings. I think it can be the same dynamic with this.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. Just, it doesn't have to be done in a week. Like every little bit helps you get to the place where you ultimately want to be. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's a great use for PPP funds, right? I know that there are some, regulation, like you do need to pay your employees, and but having those funds on hand to pay employees, those are operating expenses. That's a great way to tag that money and make sure you stay within the bounds. I loved what you said about being organized. I think that's absolutely critical. I think QuickBooks and hiring a bookkeeper can be an excellent kind of operating expense that you take on as a business owner. I think my bookkeeper, I use FA bean counters, and they charge me, I think, $100 a month.
Oh.
So it's relatively, low touch and low cost, but my financial statements are always ready, right?
Right.
Just, I guess, a quick plug there, but
you're right.
yeah. But
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think the banking relationship too, coming out of this and moving forward, it's a good takeaway for small businesses to engage their local banks. And I think some businesses have it better than others, right? Bank of America only kind of services loans and businesses that are doing over 250,000 in revenue.
Oh.
But recently a lot of community development financial institutes, CDFIs, and minority deposit institutions, MDIs, have been getting allocations of federal PPP funds, and can work with businesses to help them shore up their financial statements to allow them to get access to, still available federal funds.
Right.
Billionaire Robert Smith recently, one of his portfolio companies is the CEO of Vista Equity. I think the business is called Finastra. Now has a tool that helps businesses that may be in banking deserts or don't have banking relationships access federal funds in the PPP program through a local CDFI.
And what's a CDFI, Jason?
Community Development Financial Institution, but it's the organizations are they really operate in areas where banks don't typically serve. So they've kind of been tagged banking deserts, but places you think maybe where Bank of America or Citi or Chase don't have a presence, a physical presence. The CDFI may run local programs that stimulate, small businesses and minority-owned businesses in certain communities. So they've definitely been gaining prevalence. I believe they can borrow from the Federal Reserve, maybe at the overnight rate, and then lend it out or create programming with those funds, and also raise funds from investors through, evergreen kind of low deposit yielding instruments that investors purchase to kind of stimulate their communities. So they've definitely been gaining prevalence, and I would encourage people to go search for their local CDFI.
CDFI, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A good website actually is Opportunity Finance Network. Lists out, I think it's ofn.org. Lists out all the CDFIs in the United States, or most of them.
Wow.
So you can find one right in your backyard.
ofm.org.
Awesome. OFN as in Nancy.
Oh, OFN.
That's right. That's right.
We'll put that on the.
All right, perfect.
That's awesome. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, or owners don't realize that, and just might think like, oh, the bank or a credit union even, right? And so there are many different opportunities and avenues for them to seek out if they do need assistance with their funding, right?
Absolutely. No, I think so. There's been a lot more resources that have come about. I think what you guys are doing at Accelerate is excellent. as it relates to educating businesses on their different options and creating that funding, that funding tool. So, yeah, I think, I would reach out to Accelerate, honestly, if I was a small business, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Or Jason Ray at Zenith Solutions.
Right, right.
So let's go back to the prioritization of funds. So you mentioned a couple of software, right? Like, what are 3 steps that a small business owner could take today if realizing they're watching like this, light bulb, like, I know I need to do it. I'm going to do it. Prioritization of funds. What do they need to do? I know you talked about a framework before.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think those 3 points that I mentioned around kind of having the bare bones, getting your balance sheet to a safe state, and improving your maintenance capital are key to think about. I think the funds to prioritize are definitely internally generated funds to start, right? If you're able to generate income or revenue in this period, using those funds to address those 3 topics, or if you've already addressed them and you're moving on to business investment during this period, that could be great from a investing in new projects or growth or marketing, right? Could be a great way to
right? Maybe
equipment, right?
Okay.
Expand market share during this period where maybe your competitors are quiet or slower to act.
Right.
So using internally generated funds is, I think, the key, right? I think you have to be careful with PPP funds because they have to be earmarked for certain things like payroll. Unfortunately, I think with many federal programs, there could be a big kickback of fraud cases that come about in future years, but we'll see about that, right?
Really?
Yeah, I think it's there's ways to use the system, right? And it was an electronically administered process, so people can fabricate information, frankly.
Well, that's horrible. They should not do that.
They should not be doing that, and I think that's why just with PPP funds, I think if you're taking them, you want to make sure you're using them to their specific purpose as you attested for. Right. So, before really, I think going after federal funds in my seat, if I was a small business that was looking to use additional capital that was over and above, the revenue that my business was generating, I would look to use debt, right? And potentially use a platform like Honeycomb Credit to crowdfund some debt, or, if there is a local CDFI program that can lend me money at a lower rate, I would pursue those things because, the interest rates are low. The cost of capital on your debt and the opportunity cost of going out and getting debt and paying maybe 7 to 10% in interest on it is not the end of the world.
So you say getting debt, that means getting a loan? Is that what you mean?
Getting a loan.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
So, and we've talked with Honeycomb before at Accelerate America. They're really doing something unique. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you mentioned them.
They are, yeah. So, I think from a loan standpoint, it can be difficult to go out and, again, go to Bank of America or Chase to get a loan if your business isn't of a certain size. Honeycomb Credit allows you to almost create your own loan product. They will do the due diligence on your loan and assign a risk profile to your company and assign an interest rate that you have to pay on that loan. And then you can actually go to your community and Honeycomb's platform to crowdfund that loan. So if you want to raise $10,000 and Honeycomb says, okay, well, your business isn't that risky, and I see you have some personal guarantees potentially on this loan, we're going to make you pay 9%. You can take that offering and share it with your networks and have your friends and family and community, almost crowdfund that loan for you. So it's a really interesting concept. I think it's taking the credit or the loan side of crowdfunding, right? So a public like a platform like Republic allows you to kind of crowdfund equity for your business, which, as we talked about, is maybe a little bit more expensive and more of an opportunity cost than getting a loan in the long term, but could be another way to potentially raise money for your business. And I think with a lot more businesses being mission driven today, right, and having some kind of socially responsible or community aspect to their operations, crowdfunding and using your community to, maybe not using, but including your community, including your community on funding your business that ultimately benefits that population, I think is
Right.
brilliant, right?
Right.
So I applaud Honeycomb and
Mm-hmm.
Republic and other crowdfunding sites, especially for businesses, like mine that, I
Mm-hmm.
operate on a very small scale with,
Sure.
some low expenses, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely a mission, right? So going
Right.
out and crowdfunding and telling the community I'm trying to grow, I think is a
Right.
good sign, right?
Right. And I think it's interesting because I think with the COVID pandemic and now as we move more to be more social justice conscious, I think one of the things that has come out of that is people are really stepping up for small businesses and supporting businesses that are in their community, that are doing things that supporting their mission, like helping ensure like that they stick around. And like during COVID, like there were so many people like getting gift cards or small business I can support, a restaurant to send a meal to the first responders. And now you have like smaller businesses and you're like, who can I, what are some local Black owned businesses that I can support? And like, I need to, be better about like putting my money towards businesses that are doing good out in the world and not just like, making it worse. And so I think it's really an interesting time to see people really showing up for those small businesses, and things like Honeycomb and Republic are excellent tools too, that are kind of like additional resources for those businesses as well.
Absolutely. And I would encourage small business owners to go support other small businesses, right? Even maybe competitors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Success, again, going back to the infinite, success isn't finite, right?
Right.
And having a competitive landscape is important for your business. So get out there and eat at the local restaurants. And, I think I saw something interesting on Instagram yesterday. A fitness trainer that I follow was like, if you've been getting free advice from people on your social media, like Venmo them $10 just for their, their thoughts, and assign them some value and support them during this period. So, I think it's important to support small business ecosystem. I think small business is what makes communities special, right? I think, minority-owned businesses and businesses in Black communities, I think, are ever present right now in this period of, increased focus on racial injustice. So I think supporting those businesses and that helps their ecosystems and communities thrive, right?
Yes, definitely. I love that. All right, so let's kind of go back to business investment. Can you talk a little bit about that and how owners should think about the federal and other aid funds, and even the funds that maybe they are able to crowdsource from people?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, as I mentioned, I think investing in your business right now during a period, we entered a recession, I think it was in February.
Officially, we're officially in a recession.
Officially, right. Yeah, we're
it's official.
Right. Like we didn't know. Investing in your business right now, I think, gives you a huge competitive advantage, right? And using the PPP may be difficult to use for actual business investment, other than investing in just people and your talent and retaining talent, which is a huge investment.
Right. Sure.
But there may be other grant programs available from, again, your local CDFIs or even foundations for specific types of businesses. Getting credit in a period like this, if your business is able to get a loan, I think that's a good sign, right? You're getting a loan in a recession, but also using that for growth and kind of capturing market share during this period, I think could be an excellent strategy. So, I think an environment in a recession like this and business being shut down, I think will cause a lot of people to slow their spend of money. And I think you definitely want to be meticulous in how you spend your money, and using the framework to have maintenance capital and have capital on hand, I think is very important. But, if you have projects that will deliver you, a clear return on investment, now is the time, I think, to make those investments. If you were, fuzzy about it 6 months ago, I think it should be definitely more clear now, because, consumers are still spending online, at least. I think a lot of consumers, Bank of America reported 2 weeks ago that checking account balances were up like 33% quarter over quarter.
Wow. It's because everybody's scared to spend.
People are spending less, I think, on restaurant items, but still spending online and Amazon. And also they receive federal funds, right? So they've got kind of stimulus checks in their bank accounts. And So I think if you're the right business and you have an opportunity to increase marketing or add some mission and purpose to your business and start to message that and do good in the community right now and create a presence doing that, I think now's the time to invest in that for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love ending on that note too, and kind of wrapping it up is invest with the mission and prioritize those funds for that mission. And I think that's awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share with small business owners watching about prioritization of funds, Jason?
Yeah, no, I thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation. I think, developing that mission and purpose and starting to message that to your audiences and customers and prospects is critical during this period. I think people are emotional and they've been cooped up at home. So it's a great time to start to invest in a mission and purpose and really connect with people emotionally during this period of emotions running rampant. So a lot of change. So I'm excited for Accelerate and the small businesses that you guys work with. I think it's a great time to be a small business right now and to maybe even start a small business. So I look forward to seeing feedback on the video, but also just hearing from you, Leslie, about different developments that are going on with your businesses.
Yeah, and we're going to have Jason back soon to keep talking about different finance challenges, issues, topics that small business owners like you watching are curious about. So you can always email us hello@accelerateamerica.com if there's a small biz finance topic you want us and Jason to cover. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you again, Jason, for joining us.
Thank you.